Hey everyone, welcome to today's lesson. The first thing I need you guys to do is make sure you have your Unit 3 extra practice sheet. I gave the sub all of ours to hand out, so please help the sub make sure everybody gets theirs. And I also left them several extras in case you didn't leave yours here and lost it. Just remember that means that you still have to catch up on the 4 we did yesterday because you cannot retake your test on Friday if you don't have this done. Otherwise, everybody gets a free retake opportunity on Friday. All right, we're going to head down to number 5 really quick. We have not done that one yet, so that's where we're going to start. I'm going to go ahead and write the formula, which is on your little note card that I gave you yesterday. It is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 if you have 2 points. Or next to the table, I'm going to write the change in y over the change in x, which looks like triangle y over triangle x. Remember that when we're trying to find the slope from 2 points, we really want to write it as x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. So y2 minus y1 would really be 7 minus 4. x2 minus x1 would be 2 minus negative 3. What do we do when we have that minus negative? We turn it into a plus. Now I'm not going to fully write over it. I'm just going to draw it in highlighter so that people who didn't get that written down before I changed it can still see what happened. Now 7 minus 4 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. So we have 3 over 5. Can you divide 3 and 5 by anything? No. So your answer or your slope is 3/5. Remember that slope should always be a whole number or a fraction. Not 3,5, no parentheses, just 3/5. On the table, the change in y means, look over here at the y values. If I go from negative 4 to 2, 2 to 8, 8 to 14, what is happening? I'm going up by 6. So my slope is 6 over. And then I look at the x side, negative 2 to 0, 0 to 2, 2 to 4. Those happen to be going up by 2. So my slope is 6 over 2. Can I divide 6 by 2? Yes, of course I can. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I can either write my slope as 3 or 3 over 1. You cannot leave it as 6 over 2. That's not simplified. What I'm going to do is put a minute on the timer, give you guys a chance to try the next two. Okay, there's the timer. You guys should be trying to finish number 5. Use my examples if you need to. Make sure you have all 4 done at the end of this minute. Let's move on to number 6. Number 6 is not specifically on the note card. I need you to know that when it says find f parentheses 2, that's the x value. So you're going to rewrite the equation 8x plus 4, or f of x equals 8x plus 4, but you're going to replace the x with 2, which is really 8 times 2 plus 4. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 plus 4, 20. And that's your final answer. Now, before you try B, let's do C. On C, the difference is it says that it equals 30. So you need to solve the equation 8x plus 4 equals 30. You don't plug it in for x, you set it equal to 30, and you solve by subtracting 4 to the other side. 30 minus 4 is 26. Then how do we get rid of a number in front of x? We divide. And 26 divided by 8 is 3.25. Yes, it is a decimal. That is the only one that is a decimal. That's why I did that one with you. I'm going to put another minute on the clock. I want you to try B and D. 1 minute. All right, that minute's up. Come on back to the board for number 7. This will be our last one on this page for today. This one was very commonly missed on the test, and I don't think it's because we didn't know how to do it at all. We just couldn't quite remember how to do it. So, when it asks you for the x-intercept and the y-intercept, on your note card it says x-intercept, y equals 0, because it's where it crosses the x-axis. Well, if I plug in 0 for y, I would be left with 5x equals 40. For the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x, which would mean negative 2y equals 40. And you've got these two equations you're trying to solve. Hopefully that kind of rings a bell for some of you, because now all you have to do is divide to solve it. So 40 divided by 5 would be 8, so our x-intercept is 8. 40 divided by negative 2 would be negative 20, so our y-intercept is negative 20. That's it. Now, if I was trying to graph that, I would put a point at 8 on the x-axis, negative 20 on the y-axis, and connect them. You're going to try the second one here in just a second. Move on to the third one. I need you to know that the slope is always the number in front of x, and the y-intercept is always the number without an x. So the y-intercept of this equation is negative 7. The slope is the number in front of x. Since there is an x but not a number in front of it, it would be a 1. If there were no x's at all, it would be a 0. I'm going to put 30 seconds on the board this time. After I tell you that there is a plus 0 at the end of the third one, that is going to be your y-intercept. All right, 30 seconds this time, and go. Guys, if you need another second to finish that one up, that's okay, but I need everybody to start organizing this in your folder or turning it into the Algebra 1 tray at the front of the room for tomorrow. You have to keep a hold of this. You can't lose it because it is worth points and you have to have it in order to retake. While you guys are turning that in, the sub is going to go ahead and pass out your notes for today, 4.2. I know we did not all finish 4.1. We will do that when I return. When I get back tomorrow, we will talk about 4.1, finish it up, and I'll go over any questions you guys have on 4.2. Go ahead and pause the video here if not everybody is ready. Otherwise, keep watching and I'm going to start the notes. All right, so 4.2 is called explicit formulas, and it means we're going to try and find any term in the sequence. So like the 50th term or the 100th term or the 72nd term. In order to do that, we have to have a formula. So you're going to have a specific formula you're following today. At the top, I have just a reminder for you. Arithmetic stands for patterns that add or subtract. That is called your common difference, and you find it by subtracting. Geometric means that your pattern is multiplying, and you find your common ratio by dividing, because the opposite of multiplication is division. We're going to do arithmetic only to start with. A couple of variables you need to know for today. A1 stands for the first term. AN stands for the nth term. So like A5 would be the fifth term. A10 would be the 10th term. A2 would be the second term, and so on and so on and so on. The formula for arithmetic is right here for you. One thing that's going to be really important is the only parts I need you to fill in are A1, the first term, and D, the common difference. Everything else is going to stay there for the formula. For example, on the very first problem, my explicit formula would start off with this A with a little n. That stands for the nth term. So the nth term equals A1, the first term, which is 32, plus, and then the common difference. So 32, 40, 48, 56. What is it adding as it goes down the line? If you don't know, you would take 40 minus 32, which is 8. So D is 8. Or you could do 48 minus 40, 56 minus 48. Doesn't matter which one you pick, it should be the same answer consistently. Then we put those parentheses we see in the pattern and we write n minus 1. We leave that, kind of like point slope form, but it's not point slope form. Then we use that to answer the bottom part, okay? So A1, well, that's just the first term. We already know that the first term in this pattern was 32. But what we don't know is the 17th term. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to write out the answer after adding 8 16 times just to find the 17th term. So instead, I'm going to do 32 plus 8 times 16. Because n minus 1, if n is 17, n minus 1 would be 16. If I want to find the 42nd term, I would do 32 plus 8 times 41. I'm always doing one less. If you're a person who needs to know why, it's because I only add 8 after the first term. The first term is what it starts as, so you add 8 one less time than the term you're on. If I want to get the second term, I've only added 8 once. If I want the third term, now I've added 8 twice. So it's always one less than the term you're looking for. And then I would just grab a calculator at this point and type it in. Oops, didn't mean to close out of that. There we go. So do me a favor and make sure that everybody has a calculator. And this is not going to let me do what I want it to do. Let's see, maybe if I open up more things. Sorry, I'm trying to get the calculator to show up at the same time for us. There it goes. Okay. So 32 plus 8 times 16, and 32 plus 8 times 41. $160 and $360. Now, it would be helpful if everybody got a calculator, so let's go ahead and take a second to do that now. If the person sitting next to you also needs a calculator, get one for both of you. Use the new calculators. I know some of us are more comfortable with the old ones, but we're going to be doing exponents later, and I want you to have one of the new ones. And if you look at my screen right now, you'll notice you can see all your previous answers, so it's kind of nice. Okay, pause the video here if you guys need another second to get calculators. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second example. So the explicit formula always starts with the nth term, an, equals, and then you always drop that first term down, and then you put plus, and you put your common difference in front of n minus 1 inside of parentheses. To find that common difference, you subtract. 37 minus 31 is 6. So that would be your common difference. And then that first term, 31, that's your A1. And if you wanted to find A10, you would do 31 plus 6 times 9. If you wanted the 28th term, you would do 31 plus 6 times 27. Remember, n minus 1 means you take the term and you subtract 1. Let's see, 31 plus 6 times 9 is 85. 31 plus 6 times 27 is 193. Done. All right, third and last one for arithmetic. An equals, put your first term first. Then 1 minus 5, or negative 3 minus 1, or negative 7 minus negative 3. That's how you find your common difference. That's going to be negative 4. 1 minus 5. See? So instead of writing plus negative 4 like that, I don't want to do that because writing plus negative is kind of confusing. So we're just going to write minus 4. Parentheses and minus 1. Oops, forgot to change back to my pen. And then my A1, my first term, was 5. But for A18, the 18th term, I would do 5 minus 4 times 17. For the 33rd term, I would do 5 minus 4 times 32. And then I just grab my calculator and do 5 minus 4 times 17. 5 minus 4 times 32. Negative 63 is my first answer. Negative 123 is my second answer. And that's all there is to it, if it's arithmetic. Make sure everybody has those three filled in, because we're going to move on to geometric here in a second. Pause the video here if you need to. All right, geometric. You'll see that it has its own formula up here. The main difference is that there's no plus sign. Because geometric sequences multiply, it's A1 times R. It's A1 plus D for arithmetic because you're adding that every time. Now we're multiplying, so we're multiplying, and we're going to use those parentheses to show that. You can use a multiplication dot if you want, but it gets kind of confusing with negatives. So, this first one would be an equals -2, because that's the first term. And then you would put your ratio in the parentheses. Now this one is going from -2 to 6. So 6 divided by -2 is -3. That's your R. You subtract to find the common difference. You divide to find the common ratio. That's from 4.1, and that's the only thing that you would need to know from yesterday. That's why I'm repeating it a couple times. So -3 would be the number in the parentheses. And then for your exponent, it's n minus 1. Why is it an exponent? Because you are multiplying by -3 over and over and over again. And -3 times -3 times -3 times -3 would be -3 to the power of 4. So when we multiply repeatedly, we turn that into a power. And I'm going to go ahead and write that up here in the formula. And then underneath, I'm going to draw this little up arrow. That's the button on your calculator that you need to use for an exponent. It is, if you look at the number 9, it's to the right and up 2. Find it on your calculator. Go to the number 9, look to the right, up 2. It's like a little hat. You need to know that, or you can't type these into your calculator and you're not going to figure them out using mental math. Okay. So, to finish this problem, A1 is -2 because that's your first term, right? A9 is the 9th term. You would do -2 times -3 to the power of 8, because 9 minus 1 is 8. For the 13th term, you would do -2 times -3 to the 12th power, because 13 minus 1 is 12. Now let's go ahead and practice how to type this in. I'm going to type in -2 parentheses -3. Then you have to hit that exponent button, 8. Then -2 parentheses -3, exponent button, 12. And yeah, I know that second one's a little insane. It's, let's see, -1,062,882. It's a lot of numbers because guess what? When you multiply it by 3, numbers get really big really fast. So expect some of these geometric ones to look a little nutty. They're going to be a little uncomfortable for some of us because they get kind of big. Let's try again. A(n) equals. Then drop your first term, which is 80. Parentheses, because you're multiplying. Not a plus, that's only arithmetic. Then 80 times what is 40? Well, 40 divided by 80 is 0.5. Sorry, I know I have an extra 0 in there, but it didn't change the answer. Guys, what fraction is 0.5? Hopefully, you're thinking or saying 1/2. That's R. That's what goes in the parentheses is 1/2 to the power of n minus 1. Now, my first term was 80, so that's A1. Then it asks me for the 5th term. So that would be 80 times 1/2 to the power of 4. The 10th term would be 80 times 1/2 to the power of 9. It's always one less. Remember, that's what n minus 1 means. And then I just take my handy dandy calculator, 80 parentheses. Now let's talk for a second. How do we type fractions into the calculator? Well, 1/2 would be 1 divided by 2 to the power of 4, 5. And then we're going to have to round on this next one, heads up. 80 parentheses 1 divided by 2 to the power of 9. It's 0.156. Now, if you remember from the past, I like you guys to round to the nearest hundredths. That's 2 decimal places. That's 1500ths right now. But you have to check the third number. It's a 6, which is 5 or bigger. So that would actually round to 1600ths. 0.16. All right, guys, last problem. Woohoo! Then we get time for homework. Okay, I actually really want to try this last one with you in a different way than I think some of us might default to. I'm obviously going to start with an equals 3/4, parentheses, n minus 1. But I don't know what my ratio is, especially because I've got fractions. You can divide the fractions if you want. You would have to do 3/2 in parentheses divided by 3/4 in parentheses. So parentheses 3 divided by 2 divided by parentheses 3 divided by 4. If you don't use the parentheses, you are 100% going to get the wrong answer because your calculator is not going to do order of operations correctly. Then if I hit enter, guess what? It's just 2. So that is R. A1 is the first term, which we already know was 3/4. Then the 10th term, A10, would be that 3/4 times 2 to the power of 9. Always one less. The 20th term would be 3/4 times 2 to the power of 19. And then I'm just going to type both into my calculator. 3 divided by 4, parentheses 2, parentheses, to the power 9. 384. Then 3 divided by 4, parentheses 2, parentheses, to the power of 19. And that's kind of a big one again. 393,216. Don't be scared if you get a couple big answers on the geometric side because powers do that. Powers get big numbers pretty quickly. Okay, now what I want you guys to do is keep this with you or use the board. You can leave it up on the board if you want and work on the assignment for the rest of class. Use each other